About three-fourths of the way through, this is Harry and Dumbledore are talking about the prophecy. Dumbledore has been explaining about the Horcruxes, and he tells Harry that he's going to bring Harry along when they're going to go look for Horcrux, and Harry's all excited about this. Okay, so Harry asks, so if all of his Horcruxes are destroyed, Voldemort could be killed? Dumbledore, yes, I think so. Without his Horcruxes, Voldemort will be a mortal man with a maimed and diminished soul. Never forget, though, that while his soul may be damaged beyond repair, his brain and his magical powers remain intact. It will take uncommon skill and power. Uncommon skill and power. Okay? Dumbledore says, to kill a wizard like Voldemort, even without his Horcruxes. Harry, but I haven't got uncommon skill and power. Yes, you have, Dumbledore says. And notice we're told, Dumbledore says that firmly. It's an assertion. He's saying, shut up, kid. If I say you have uncommon skill and power, you have uncommon skill and power. And keep in mind who this is coming from. Okay? You have a power that Voldemort has never had. You can. Harry's like, oh, great, here we are. Sound like anybody else? The old argument? I know. I can love. It was only with difficulty that he stopped himself adding, big deal. Yes, Harry, you can love, said Dumbledore, who acted as though he knew what Harry was thinking, which, given everything that has happened to you, is a great and remarkable thing. Okay? What does he mean? Given everything that has happened to you.
Amazing, insanely cynical.
Yeah.
You could have turned out like Tom or Snape.
Trace that back to when Harry is a year and 3 months old. Everything that has happened to him. His parents are killed. He is cursed. He goes to live with the Dursleys. He's beat up by Dudley almost every day of his life. Book 1, Book 2, Book 3, Book 4, Book 5, Book most of 6. Okay? He's not had it easy. He has every right in the world to be what?
Bitter.
Louder.
Bitter.
Bitter. Pessimistic. Skeptical. Jaded. Okay? So when the prophecy says that I'll have power the Dark Lord knows not, it just means love? What's Harry hoping for? He'll be able to pull a rabbit out of the proverbial hat? That he'll be able to have some kind of magical power? What is the magic, the real magic, in these stories? Is it Wingardium Leviosa? Is it Expelliarmus? Is it Avada Kedavra? Is it anything that comes out of a wand or out of a bottle? No. And that's the problem all those right-wing wacko Christians have with the books, is they're reading them literally, as if all the magic is the spells. It's not. The magic lies where? It's in the virtues that we see extolled. It is in loyalty, love, friendship, bravery, courage, selflessness, self-sacrifice, etc. Yes, just love, Dumbledore says. But Harry, never forget that what the prophecy says is only significant because Voldemort made it so. I told you this at the end of last year. What's he doing? I apparently have to teach you again because you're pretty thick-skulled. You didn't learn then, so now you have to learn again. Just as he didn't learn the lesson he should have learned at the end of Book 3. The consequences of our actions are so varied that it's impossible to predict the future. Okay? Voldemort singled you out as the person who would be most dangerous to him. And in doing so, come on, turn page. He made you the person who would be most dangerous to him. Harry, but it comes to the same. What does Harry mean it comes to the same? Two walk in, one walks out. That's Harry's thought. Only one of us can live. What was that? Sounded like a little puppy. Dumbledore. No, it doesn't. You're setting too much store by the prophecy. Why? What does Harry think a prophecy means? Set in stone. That the meaning is behind the prophecy. The meaning is where kind of the prophecy is coming from. Dumbledore is saying the prophecy only means something. Why? Because Voldemort acted on it. In other words, it is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. Voldemort made a choice. Okay? But you said the prophecy means if Voldemort had never heard of the prophecy, would it have been fulfilled? If Snape had never reported to Voldemort what he had heard, would Voldemort have gone to Godric's Hollow that night? No, he would have had no reason to, right? Okay? So he hears, part of something, and he acts on that part. Of course not. Do you think every prophecy in the Hall of Prophecy has been fulfilled? But last year you said one of us would have to kill the other. It was actually Harry that said that, and Dumbledore just confirmed it. Okay? Harry, only because Voldemort made a grave error and acted on Trelawney's words. Notice what Voldemort's error was. He put into action the prophecy. In other words, it's like playing pool. You rack up those balls. Those balls are going to stay there forever, right? Until you do what? Until you break that rack. Okay? That prophecy would have remained intact forever. Until somebody does something. Don't you see? If he had not forced your mother to die for you, would he have given you a magical protection he could not penetrate? Of course not. Voldemort himself created his worst enemy, just as tyrants everywhere do. Have you any idea how much tyrants fear the people they oppress? You think Stalin killed the tens of millions simply out of sheer joy? No, it's because he feared the masses. Okay? All of them realize that one day, amongst their many victims, there is sure to be one who rises against them and strikes back. Notice what Dumbledore has just said. Out of the many people who oppose the tyrant, what does it take? One. It takes one to stand up. Okay? Maybe that one will get killed. Then what does it take? Another one. Always he's on the lookout for the one who would challenge him. Did Harry challenge him when he was 1 year and 3 months? But okay. Notice Harry's response. But what does that tell us? How much has he heard of what Dumbledore just said? Zip. It is essential that you understand this. And if I were directing this, I would have Dumbledore take Harry's shoulders and go, listen to me. Open that thick skull of yours and hear. Harry had never seen him so agitated. Harry obviously hadn't seen the end of Book 5 when it was brought to film. Because there, Dumbledore's kind of, scatterbrained. He's so agitated. Or even the Goblet of Fire, where he's all freaked out by the goblet. Is Dumbledore freaked out by he just kind of sits and goes, huh, imagine that. By attempting to kill you, Voldemort himself singled out the remarkable person who sits here in front of me and gave him the tools for the job. What does he mean, gave him the tools for the job? Gave him uncommon skill and power? No. It's Voldemort's fault you are able to see into his thoughts, his ambitions, that you even understand the snake-like language in which he gives orders. And yet, Harry, despite your insight into Voldemort's world, you've never been seduced by the dark arts. Who has been seduced by the dark arts? Snape, Draco to some extent, Bellatrix, I mean, she's drunk the whole six-pack. Never even for a second shown the slightest desire to become one of Voldemort's followers. Okay, Dumbledore is saying this towards the end of Book 6. Go back to the end of Book 1. Do you remember what Harry says just before they get ready to go down into, not just before, it's in the afternoon, before they go down to go after the Sorcerer's Stone? He tells Ron and Hermione, I'm going after the stone tonight. Oh, Harry, you can't. He says, it doesn't matter anymore. House points, Quidditch, doesn't matter. Voldemort gets the stone, he'll flatten Hogwarts or turn it into a school for the dark arts. And he says, I'm never going over to the dark side. Those are his exact words. Where has anybody ever suggested he should in that book? There's one possible answer to that. Sorting Hat says he'd do well in Slytherin. Doesn't say anything about the dark arts. Slytherin is not about the dark arts. Slytherin House is not about learning the dark arts. One possible source of that. When Harry meets Malfoy, and then when he meets Malfoy again on the train, and Malfoy says, anybody remember what he offers Harry? Friendship. He says, kind of, I can help you. And Harry says, thanks, but no thanks. I think I know who my own friends are. But even then, it's not Malfoy saying, Harry, join with me, and together we will rule them. Okay? That scene in Book 1 is really out of place because it's never been offered to him. But I think it's Harry saying, this is what's going on. And it could also be a little teeny tiny bit of the Horcrux going, ding, 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 ding. You join me. Of course I haven't. He killed my mom and dad. You're protected, in short, by your ability to love. The only protection that you could possibly work against the lure of power like Voldemort's. In spite of all the temptation you've endured, all the suffering, you remain pure of heart. How do we know? Look at his Polyjuice potion. Just as pure as you were at the age of 11 when you stared into a mirror that reflected your heart's desire, and it showed you what? Only the way to thwart Lord Voldemort, and not immortality or riches. Which, by the way, we skipped that little quote at the end of the book. Dumbledore tells Harry, the stone has been destroyed. And Harry says, oh, but you're friends. Don't worry, it's like going to sleep after a long, 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 long day. And Dumbledore goes on and says, imagine two things. Untold wealth, untold meaning not unspoken about, it means uncountable wealth. And immortality. The two things most humans would choose. Anybody remember what he says next? The only thing is humans have a knack for choosing the things that are worst for them. Now, I don't know about you. Money and life. Dumbledore says in his comment, humans have a knack of choosing the things that are worst for them. Is he saying money and life are the worst things for us? And therefore, we ought to be looking for poverty and death? He's not saying that. He's not saying that. Think of what he actually says. This, the stone, gives you these. And he says, those are the two things most people would choose. The problem is humans have a knack for choosing exactly the worst things. Money. Why is money a bad thing? It's corruptive. Okay? Book of Timothy, and then Chaucer uses this. Chaucer uses this for the tale that the Beetle of Bard is based on. Partner's Tale. See, I'm already way off. Where I want to be going. Radix malorum est cupiditas. The root of all evil is greed, avarice. Avarice is the root of all evil. Paul says in the book of Timothy. Chaucer takes that as kind of the text that the partner will say in the Partner's Tale. The Partner's Tale has a tale of three brothers. It's what Rolling bases the tale of three brothers from the Beetle of the Bard, from Beetle of the Bard on. Okay? What's he getting at? Well, why do people want money? Ultimately, not just to buy silly, stupid little stuff like this. Power. For what? What? Is it? Is it power to control others? Really dig down and think about this. What does money supposedly give you control over? Your life. How? Who said that? That's it, though. It gives you security over today, tomorrow. It gives you security over tomorrow. Because we don't know what tomorrow brings, right? Why, when you came and you did the orientation, both the online orientation and the orientation here, probably the orientation at your home institution, why was one of the things they emphasize in all those orientations that little thing called, just think of what it means. We are ensuring that nothing bad will happen to you. We will make sure that if something bad does happen to you, what? You'll be taken care of. What's that attempting to do? We used to believe, we humans, used to believe in a kind of dark, unseen, unknowable power. Anybody know what that is? Yes. Fate. Or if you're familiar with Young Frankenstein, destiny. Destiny, there's no escaping destiny. What does it mean? That which cannot be avoided. Okay? You've all heard of the play or read the play, Oedipus the King, Oedipus Rex. Oedipus hears the prophecy. You've fated to sleep with your mother, kill your father. He says, I don't really want to do that. I love my father, I love my mother, but not in that way. And what does he try to do? He tries to make that end run around fate and causes fate to happen. What does Voldemort do? He tries to make the end run around prophecy and creates it. What's he attempting to do? Control the future. What's he not doing? When is he not living? When is he not living? Now. He's not living now. He's always thinking of tomorrow. He's always thinking of another time. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, well, in talking about this, okay? Why do we want immortality? Why does Voldemort want immortality? He's scared of death. Why? Because it's the unknown. You can't control the unknown, can you? You can't put it in a box. You can't define it. You can't limit it. You can't lay hands on it and say, no, I'm in control. All right? So, I don't think he's saying, okay, so be like St. Francis, go sell everything you have, and St. Francis didn't kill himself. Dumbledore's not saying give away everything and then off yourself in some dark alley some night. But what is this? What can you do with this without literally dying? There's a word up here somewhere that implies it. How about this? You can selflessness. You can what?
Die to self.
Die to self. What does die to self mean? Think chivalry. Put others first. You think I'm going way out on a limb here? Wait till we get to Godric's Hollow. Okay? Assuming we get there. So, back to here. Dumbledore says, you looked in the mirror and what did it do? It showed you the way to thwart Lord Voldemort. Not immortality or riches. Malfoy looked in that, what would he see? Or, I'm getting the stone for me. Okay? Harry, have you any idea how few wizards could have seen what you saw in that mirror? Which is why Dumbledore says in book 1, this is one of my more brilliant ideas. And, this is saying a lot. Only the person who looks in it who doesn't want the stone for him or herself will be able to get the stone, he says. Voldemort should have known then what he was dealing with. That is, Voldemort should have known at the end of book 1, ooh, this kid's going to be hard to beat. Why? Because he's not fighting for himself. He's not in it to preserve himself. How do we know he's not in it to preserve himself? At the end of book 1. Okay, even later than that. Keep going.
So he's going to hold on to Quirrell's faith until he dies.
That's it. Quirrell can't touch Harry. Harry comes to that realization. So what does Harry do? I'm going to hold on to him. What does it nearly do to Harry, Dumbledore says? It nearly kills him. Okay? But he knows it now. Dumbledore says, you flitted into Lord Voldemort's mind without damage to yourself, but he cannot possess you without enduring mortal agony. Harry, notice, but. It all comes to the same thing. In other words, Harry is like Charlie Brown listening to the adult teacher. Wah, 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 wah. That's I've got to try and kill him, or Dumbledore. Got to? What does Harry mean by I've got to? Louder, Stephanie. Why? Because of the prophecy. Harry thinks like there is a giant hand back there, and he is simply a marionette. Like when Voldemort made him bow, well, there's this thing back there going, Harry, you must kill Voldemort. Got to? Of course you've got to, Dumbledore says. But not because of the prophecy. What is making Harry do this? Okay, it's Harry. He said, forget the prophecy. Imagine for a moment everything that's happening is going on. What would you do? How would you feel about Voldemort? Harry watched Dumbledore striding up and down in front of him and thought, why is Dumbledore striding up and down of him? It's like he wants to understand, damn it. He can't make him understand, can he? Harry has got to come to the realization himself. He thought of his mother. his father in Sirius. He thought of Cedric Diggory. He's thinking of all these people who are dying because of Voldemort. He thought of all the terrible deeds he knew Lord Voldemort had done. A flame seemed to leap up inside his chest, searing his throat. What is the flame? Love. That's what it is. It's not flames of hell coming up to, devour Voldemort. I'd want him finished. Notice how Harry puts this. Oh, I never noticed that before.
That's
Voldemort. Rowling has talked about reading Lord of the Rings. And I've drawn some parallels between these two books. Early in the Lord of the Rings, in the chapter The Shadow of the Past, Gandalf and Frodo are talking. And Gandalf says, the only way to get rid of the ring is to throw it into the fires of Mount Doom. And he asks Frodo a question. And Frodo says, I really do wish to destroy it. And then he kind of pauses and says, or rather, I wish to have it destroyed. Okay? I really do wish to destroy it. Subject? I, verb, do really wish to destroy it. Predicate. Okay? It's called what? Active voice. Second time he says it, what does he do? He makes it passive voice. What's the wonderful thing about passive voice? There's no agency. Journalists use passive voice when they don't want to ascribe blame. They'll talk about an SUV mowing down people. SUVs don't start on their own and kind of pick a group of people, go out and kill them. Or, an AK-47 shot 100, not without a person pulling the trigger, it didn't. Okay? What did Rowling just do? She reverses what Tolkien does with Frodo. I'd want him finished. Passive voice. I'd want somebody else to take care of him. And then And then Harry restates it. And I'd want to do it. Of course you would. You see, the prophecy does not mean you have to do anything. What can Harry do if he wants? Get a plane ticket, go off to the United States. If he wanted to. Go to Bulgaria. Go visit Durmstrang. It's nice this time of year, But the prophecy caused Lord Voldemort to mark you as his equal. In other words, you are free to choose your way. Rowling is suggesting here, none of us is constrained by fate or any kind of determinism. Quite free to turn your back on the prophecy. But Voldemort continues to set store by the prophecy. In other words, you're free to turn from it, Harry, and say, no, I won't have anything to do with Voldemort. Voldemort, however, what?
pretty keen on staying on
He's also free to act. Okay? And he's going to keep hunting you down. What could Harry do? Let him. Let him kill me. He will continue to hunt you, which makes it certain, really, that Harry's shoulders slump, that one of us is going to end up killing the other. Yes. Notice how he put that. One of us is going to end up killing the other. Does Harry say that I'm going to end up having to defend myself and kill him? No. He understood at last. It was, he thought. Harry thinks. Harry understands things because this is how we all ultimately reach real, deep, powerful truths. He understands them in images, in analogies, in metaphors. He doesn't understand it by a simple, logical, syllogism. It's the difference, he thought, between being dragged into the arena to face a battle to the death, and walking into the arena with your head held high. Why does Harry think in terms of an arena? Why does Rowling use this image? Because it's historical. Now, I know some of you, because I've talked to some of you and you've mentioned this. Some of you have been to Rome. There's a big, huge building in Rome. Old, lots of columns or arches. What's it called? The Roman Colosseum. What happened in the Roman Colosseum? You had gladiators. Okay? And the early history of the church, after beginning around the time of Nero, okay, you start having the persecutions against the Christian church. And people start being dragged to the Roman Colosseum, brought to the Roman Colosseum for what? For sport. Let's watch the Christians being killed by the gladiators, as some of them were, being killed by lions, as some of them were, being killed by tigers, bears, oh my. Okay? And yet we have multiple eyewitness written accounts of Christians going into the Colosseum, marching in, not being dragged in, kicking and screaming, but marching in, how does Harry put it? Head held high. Read, for example, the letters, and this name might kind of interest you, the letters of St. Ignatius of Antioch. Ignotus, Antioch, what's the third? Cadmus, Peveril. St. Ignatius was a bishop, early bishop of the church. Man who made him bishop was a direct descendant, direct follower of John the Beloved. St. Ignatius wrote a series of 7 letters on his way to Rome to his martyrdom. The 7 letters were written to 7 churches. In each of these letters, he tells the various people, I'm on my way to be martyred. I'm looking forward to it. This is how I will become, he says, a real Christian. To be a martyr. Okay? The letter that he writes to Rome is, I hear you guys are trying to buy off my freedom. Please don't. I want to become fully human. I can only do that by being sacrificed. I can only do that by becoming like Christ, who became fully, so to speak, what he was intended to be by hanging there on the cross. Okay? I think all this language is behind the image that Rowling is using here. Because there are no other arenas, so to speak, within the book. The Quidditch pitch doesn't match the imagery at all. Because it's not a battle to the death. Okay? Harry goes on and thinks, some people perhaps would say there is little to choose between the 2 ways. The 2 ways of what? Thank you. I need more whiteboard. No, that's not going to work either. I don't need erase. The think. No, that's right. 2 ways of dying. What are the 2 ways? If you went by any chance to the Shakespeare and Death exhibit yesterday in the Bud Lane, I know you didn't have time. Yeah, it kind of works. there is a book mentioned there, and I think they actually had a portion of it, called Ars Moriendi, Art of Dying. Right? There's dying well, and what's the opposite? There's dying poorly. Who do we see die well in the books? Potters? Sirius? Who dies poorly? And who tells us he dies poorly? Nearly headless neck. He chooses his pale imitation of life because he's afraid to die. Cedric? Cedric dies well. Remus? Tonks? Fred? Dobby? Yeah, I don't like the Creevies. I'm frankly glad that they're dead. That's just me, sorry. Yeah, I don't like calling Creedy yours, brother.
It's okay that they died.
What point do they serve? Really, in the entire course arc story of the novel, what point does Colin Creevy serve?
Be happy that they're dead.
They're characters in the novel. Okay. So, some people perhaps would say there was little to choose between the two ways, but Dumbledore knew Harry, and so do I. And with a rush of fierce pride, so did my parents. There was all the difference in the world. Think of how James dies for a moment. No wand. He's going to take on Voldemort how? Yeah.
Giving him something else to do before he got to Lily.
He was trying to give Lily time. So what was he doing? He was sacrificing himself. He had no means to stop Voldemort, other than it'll take him a second or two. Okay? That's the self-sacrifice. Okay, now go on to 2.7 after a freaking hour. Okay. Let's pick up with the chapter Fallen Warrior. And yeah, I just can't talk about any of that. Page, if you have page references or anything like that, around page 70. This is, stop doing that. Why are you not changing? This is after they arrive at the Burrow. The 7 Potters disappear and all that. And Harry talks about seeing Stan Shunpike. He said, I tried to disarm him. He must be imperious. Lupin looked aghast. Harry, the time for disarming is past. These people are trying to capture and kill you. At least stun if you aren't prepared to kill. Notice, if you aren't prepared to kill. Is there a little hint or element of something there? Is Lupin kind of saying, if you're not strong enough, I think he might be, okay, that he might be suggesting, Harry, time to man up. You're going to have to kill. But if you can't kill Stan Shunpike, stun him. What does Harry do? He gives Lupin an explanation of why he doesn't stun Stan. Or Stan stun. We were hundreds of feet up. Stan's not himself, and if I'd stunned him, he'd have fallen. He'd have died the same as if he'd used Avada Kedavra. Okay, just stop for a minute and think of that simple little phrase. Stan's not himself. What does that mean? He's not acting of his own free will. Think of it in relation to this idea that we've discussed before. Wholeness. Stan's not healthy when he's like this. Why? He's not complete. He's not whole. He's not in control of himself. Okay? So, and if I stunned him, he'd fallen. He'd have died. The same as if I'd used Avada Kedavra. In other words, if I'd stunned him, I might as well have killed him. Expelliarmus saved me from Voldemort 2 years ago. Lupin was reminding him of the sneering Hufflepuff Zacharias Smith. Yes, Harry, says Lupin, and a great number of Death Eaters witnessed that happening. Forgive me, but it was a very unusual move then, under imminent threat of death. Repeating it tonight in front of Death Eaters who either witnessed or heard about the first occasion was close to suicidal. So you think I should have killed Stan Shunpike. Okay. Harry's thinking logically here. Okay, so if I shouldn't have used Expelliarmus, I should have stunned him, which would have resulted in his death, so I should have just killed him anyways. Of course not. Okay, Lupin, give him the third option then. Does Remus ever give him a third option? Is there one? No. Levicorpus? He's already up in the air. How about stun him and then Levicorpus him? Or Wingardium Leviosa him, you know. Frankly, of course not, says Lupin, but the Death Eaters, frankly, most people, who does he mean? Me! The other Order members would have expected you to attack back. Notice, would have expected you to do what? To use an offensive spell. What is Expelliarmus? It's defensive. It's defensive. It's like Protego. Okay? Expelliarmus is a useful spell, Harry, but the Death Eaters seem to think it is your signature move. I urge you not to let it become so. Okay? Harry, I won't blast people out of my way just because they're there. That's Voldemort's job. What else does that suggest, Rachel? You've got to look on your...
I'm really pleased by that line.
Why?
Because that's exactly what Voldemort did to Harry's parents. That's what he did to the Muggle. That's constantly does that. And Harry's like, no, I'm not going down that road. I'm not evil.
Kill the spare.
Yeah.
Okay? Is Harry suggesting anything else by that line, though?
He's like, hey, Lupin, you're willing to do that.
Yeah, I think so. He's drawing the slippery slope. Okay?
Well, isn't it also Harry taking responsibility for his own actions?
Well, yeah.
Dumbledore said there's nobody else between. He doesn't want anybody else between people. So he's
Yeah.
saying, I'm in control.
It's your signature move. He also says it is a very unusual move. Is this Harry's uncommon skill?
I would say so, because in most circumstances, if it's me or you, I'm not going to think twice. And he's sitting here like, okay, so his first thought isn't even me or him. It's, oh, someone needs to help him.
Think about it with Stan Shunpike. Why does Harry use Expelliarmus on Stan? This gets to what I was talking about Expelliarmus the last time or the time before that. He's protecting Stan. He's protecting Stan. He's not protecting himself. Because if he does anything else, Stan's a goner. Okay? Lupin's retort was lost. Whatever that retort was. Hold on here. Let me scroll through these notes a little bit. So, we have other people brought in, and we hear about George. Harry sees, where George's ear had been, a clean, gaping hole. Just a hole in the side of its head. Okay? Mrs. Weasley had staunched the bleeding. Harry asks, I'm assuming this is Harry asking this, how is he? Mrs. Weasley looked around and said, I can't make it grow back, not when it's been removed by dark magic. I mean, they've got Skelegro. Surely somebody has invented Iragro or something. But it could have been so much worse. He's alive. Okay, who did this to Fred? Snape. Using what? Sectum Sempra. What could have happened? His whole head could have been gone. Okay, he's alive. Yeah, said Harry, thank God. It's the first time Harry says that in the novels. Okay, so we hear Hermione and Kingsley come in. Arthur arrives, and notice Mrs. Weasley kind of breaks down at this point. Why? Because she doesn't have to maintain her strength now. She has her husband with her. How is he? Arthur asks. Mr. Weasley drops to his knees beside George. For the first time since Harry had known him, Fred seemed to be lost for words. He gaped over the back of the sofa at his twin's wound as if he could not believe what he was seeing. Mrs. Weasley asks, "How do you feel, Georgie?" George's fingers reach up to his head. Saint-like. Fred, what's wrong with him? Fred's thinking, my partner in crime, my the yin to my yang, etc. Is his mind affected? Saint-like. You see? I'm holy, Fred. Get it? Okay. It's meant humorously, obviously. Because who is this? It's not Fred that's missing it here. Why? Saint Fred? How many of you have heard of Saint Fred? But you have heard, especially being in England, of Saint George and the dragon. You can't miss Saint George and the dragon in England unless you're blind. Literally, you can't miss Saint George and the dragon unless you're blind because he's everywhere. He's on street signs, he's on lampposts, he's on flags. Okay? But how else is George saint-like? In the real sense of the word. What has happened to George and why?
He's lost an heir because he was being helping Harry.
Okay? It's not necessarily that he lost it. He's damaged. He's injured. For what? For sacrificing himself for Harry. For the cause, so to speak. When the 7 people, or the 6 people, become Harry Potters, is that symbolic of anything? What could Harry Potters be called? Potterheads?
Disciples.
Potterians? Disciples? Okay. You read in the book of Acts that in the city of Antioch, it's not up there anymore, the followers of Christ were first called what? Christians. The IANS? Little Christs. George is essentially a little Harry. Is Harry damaged? Yes, he is. Okay. So by George calling himself saint-like, he's kind of saying, I'm one of the real believers. I'm one of the true believers. Okay? Don't mistake me. Not in Christianity. I'm not saying that. I'm saying she's modeling some of the language she uses on the language of the church. Okay? We are going to see a real saint. Because for most of the church, in order to become a real saint, okay, in the early church especially, you had to become a martyr. You had to die. Fred's the real martyr. Okay? So, they start to talk about what happened. How did they get followed? How did they know? Okay? And they don't trust Mundungus. But Bill says it couldn't have been Mundungus. He couldn't have betrayed us. They didn't know there would be 7 Harrys. That confused them the moment we appeared. And in case you've forgotten, it was Mundungus who suggested that little bit of, as he calls it, skullduggery. Why wouldn't he have told them the essential point? That is, if Dung had told them what was going to happen, why wouldn't he have told them there are going to be 7 Potters and Harry's going to be with Hagrid? Okay? Why is Harry with Hagrid? Why isn't he with Mad Eye Moody? Okay, because Mad Eye's obvious choice. He's this great orator. Why else?
It's America's factory. He left.
It's-
Yeah.
Harry arrived with Hagrid on a motorbike to number 4 Privet Drive, and he leaves with Hagrid on a motorbike to number 4 Privet Drive. Notice, Harry arrives with nothing, and he leaves, arriving to his destination with nothing. He doesn't have Hedwig when he arrives. He doesn't have Hedwig when he arrives again. That's a little indication, Harry's going to get stripped of everything. Everything he owns, everything that's important to him, everything that's valuable to him. After all, Book 4, I just made this connection. Book 4. What is the one thing Harry will miss the most? Second task. Ron Weasley. Who leaves? Okay. So we have these parallels going on throughout. So they keep talking in Fleur. Fleur says, yes, and that is all very good. But still, he does not explain how they knew we were moving Harry tonight, does he? Somebody must have been careless. Somebody let slip the date to an outsider. It is the only explanation for them knowing the date, but not the old plan. Fleur, okay, remember, she is an outsider. She's an other, so to speak. Yeah, married into the clan, all that kind of stuff. But she says somebody spilled the beans. She glares around at all of them. Harry, no. If somebody made a mistake and let something slip, they didn't mean to do it. It's not their fault. We've got to trust each other. I trust all of you. I don't think anyone in this room would ever sell me to Voldemort. Fred, way to go, Harry, George, yeah, ear. And by the way, George's comment, or when he says holy, what does Fred say in response? Name one ear joke. With the whole universe of ear jokes, he says. Really? So, Harry looks at Lupin because Lupin's giving Harry a strange look. Harry looks at Lupin. You think I'm a fool? Okay. Hold on, let me close this one window that keeps popping up. You think I'm a fool? No, I think you're like James, who would have regarded it as the height of dishonor to mistrust his friends. Maybe not such a good example. Should James have trusted all of his friends? Harry knew what Lupin was getting at. Okay. Bill says, Lupin says to Bill, work to do. I can ask Kingsley. No, I'll do it. What are you talking about? Mad Eye's body, says Lupin. We need to recover it. Mrs. Weasley, can't. Bill, wait. Not unless you'd rather the Death Eaters took it. What is Bill suggesting there? What will the Death Eaters do with Mad Eye's body? Okay, desecrate it possibly. Turn it into an inferi. How fearsome would that be? Okay. Harry, I've got to go. Don't be silly, said Mrs. Weasley. What do you mean? I can't stay here. You're all in danger while I'm here. He goes on. If Voldemort finds out I'm here, Mrs. Weasley, why should he? Dozen places you could be. Growl, Hagrid, you're not going anywhere. Blimey, Harry, after all we've been through to get here, what does it mean after all we've been through? George's ear, Mad Eye's body. When you first read this, 11, 12, 13, whatever age you were, and you turned that page from the chapter where Harry and all them leave, and you turn the page and you have the chapter title, Fallen Warrior, and you read the first paragraph, what do you think? Who is it? It's Hagrid. You think it's Hagrid that's the dead, and what would that mean? Notice she doesn't kill Hagrid off. There was a lot of speculation when Book 5 came out that Hagrid was going to be the one that dies. Okay? Because he says something in the Prisoner of Azkaban about leaving kind of permanently. But you think it's Hagrid, and it turns out not to be. So what's the effect of having it be Mad Eye and not Hagrid? Yeah, relief. So you're glad it's Hagrid. You're glad it's Mad Eye and not Hagrid, because what kind of role has Hagrid taken on? Crazy uncle is the way I always think of him, or really cool uncle.
He walks the line.
Depends on how much he's had to drink. Okay. And then Harry tells them about what his wand did in the air. Notice how he describes it. He says, when Hagrid says, escaped him, fought him off again, Harry, way to go, Harry, it wasn't me. It was my wand. My wand acted of its own accord. But that's impossible, Harry, Hermione says. You reacted instinctively. You were channeling magic and you didn't know it. Harry, no. The bike was falling. I couldn't have told you where Voldemort was. But my wand spun in my hand. What does that mean? The wand spun. It doesn't mean the wand did this. Because he doesn't say the wand spun my hand. It spun in my hand, he says, and found Voldemort and shot a spell at him. Wasn't even a spell I recognized. Mr. Weasley, well, a pressured situation. Harry, no! It wasn't like that. And now he's angry. His scar is burning. He's frustrated. No one says anything. He knew they did not believe him. Okay? But what does he think? Dumbledore would have believed him. Dumbledore would have known what the, spell was. Okay? But Dumbledore, Harry says, Dumbledore had always known the answers. He had known about wands, had explained to Harry the strange connection. But Dumbledore, like Mad Eye, like Sirius, like his parents, like his poor owl, all were gone where Harry could never talk to them again. He's never going to get any advice. He's never going to get any input. He felt a burning in his throat, nothing to do with fire whiskey. Okay? And he bursts into Voldemort's mind. Okay? We're going to skip a bunch again. Where do I have next? That far. Yeah, I guess so. Jump up to we're going to skip the will of Albus Dumbledore. All we need to talk about there, Scrimgeour comes. Hermione gets the book. Ron gets the Deluminator. What does Harry receive? The snitch and... But he doesn't receive the sword. Okay? Then we have the wedding. And at the wedding, Harry runs into Crumb. Harry's not Harry. He's now Barry, I think it is. Barney, sorry. And he meets Xenophilius Lovegood. What did you say?
He's a trip.
Explain. What do you mean he's a trip?
Like, Luna always sounds like she's smoking something. But Xenophilius...
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
But
Yeah, but
different
he's
level.
Really?
I mean, you think he's a grown adult. He should at least...
Actually, he's kind of dreamy. He's kind of acid.
Or this is the...
I said trip for a reason.
Oh, I have a crazy thing.
Think of his name. Well, I'm thinking even, Luna's name. Luna Lovegood. Lunar, lunacy. Right? Xenophilius Lovegood. Think of this part first.
Like literally. Love.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The scholastic philosophers essentially taught that the summum bonum, the highest good, was love. Love of God, ultimately. Though St. Augustine said, love God and do what you will. As long as you do that first part, everything else will fall into place. Okay? Xenophilius Lovegood. You're all familiar with this because it gets used all too often in college campuses in relation to xenophobic. Okay? Which means fear of what? So this is
Like strangers.
fear of strangers, fear of the other, fear of others. Like, oh, those bad, illegal aliens, or if you want to call them undocumented workers and change the English language, don't be my guest. But, okay, so xenophilius, so this is what? This is the others. Xenophobia is fear of this. Okay? So what's this? It's exactly. If this were spelled, if she had spelled this xenophilius with an F, it'd be something else entirely. Because this is Latin, this is Greek. The Latin would be son of others, but the Greek is love. Love of others. Love good. Okay. So what does that mean, love of others? Or love of, if you want, the other, and if you want to go all English department-y, you can capitalize the other. Ooh. Love of the other. Because what does the other mean then? Whatever is different than you. Go back to the first chapter, first paragraph, first book. Describe the Dursleys. They don't like anything strange or mysterious. In other words, they don't like anything other. They like everything just like them. Xenophilius Lovegood is the polar opposite of the Dursleys. The more wild and extreme and out there, the more he's cool with it. Okay? So, we see Xenophilius. He's kind of out there. We hear the wedding vows, the little bit of them that we do here. Do you, William Arthur, take Fleur Isabel? Blah, 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 blah. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Then I declare you bonded for life. Bonded. What does bonded mean? Ball and chain. Okay? That's what it means. It means bound. Bound. How? For life. Okay? Rowling puts that in there. So if you would all please stand up, and they do, and everybody, toasts the happy couple. Harry meets up with Crumb. Crumb tells Harry a lot of stuff about the mark that Xenophilius Lovegood has on his bright yellow cloak. What does Crumb call this thing? Grindelwald's mark. Okay. Who is Grindelwald supposed to be? I mean, let's get down to brass tacks. Who's the real... He's Hitler. He's Hitler. Okay. My wife and I were somewhere... we were at Durham Cathedral. Durham Cathedral has the tombs of St. Bede the Venerable, the guy who wrote the Ecclesiastical History of the English Church, came up with the AD, BC system of dating, okay? And St. Cuthbert, one of the great saints of the English Church. And above Cuthbert's tomb, they've got this beautiful icon of Christ and stuff. And on the hem of Christ's robe, we have this interesting pattern that looks like this. It kind of goes like this. And I pointed out to my wife, within this pattern, I am not kidding, swastikas. I'm like, whoa! Surely somebody has said, you might want to rethink that whole drawing. Okay? But keep in mind, the swastika is 5,000 years old. It's Proto-Indo-European. Okay? You see it in quote-unquote engravings and stuff of the peoples who became the Russians, people who became the Indians, people who became Greek, people who became Italians, etc. Okay? And it's a sun image. These are like bursts with the sun at the center, sun rays. Okay? So, here he talks to Crumb. Crumb wants to go beat the tar out of Xenophilius. And then Harry runs into Elphias Doge and Auntie Muriel. And Harry asks Doge, he says, Rita Skeeter hinted that Professor Dumbledore was involved in the dark arts when he was young. Don't believe a word of it, Doge said. Not a word, Harry. Let nothing tarnish your memories of Albus Dumbledore. Look at Harry's next paragraph, or look at the next paragraph. Harry looked into Doge's earnest, pained face and felt not reassured, but frustrated. Did Doge really think it was that easy? That Harry could simply choose not to believe? Okay. Notice what Harry's thinking there. What is he saying? What is Harry thinking Doge is suggesting? To choose not to believe. To choose not to believe what? The truth? The truth according to whom? Rita Skeeter. Okay. Harry could simply choose not to believe. Didn't Doge understand Harry's need to be sure? To know everything? What is Doge actually saying? Don't believe a word of it. Don't believe a word of what? What has Rita Skeeter ever said, ever written that was true? The one article that she was forced to write under extortion. That she would be outed if she didn't print everything, what? Exactly as Harry said it. Everything else she wrote?
Well, it's
Complete lies.
not always complete. Like when she gets it right, that Harry's collapsed because of his scar and left his glass. Like
just
it's
stuff
all
you find in the checkout line.
yeah, and there's like a
Grocery
kernel
store.
of truth
With like Photoshop
at the heart
pictures
of what she
celebrities.
writes.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
the National Enquirer occasionally runs true stories
I
too,
know, but I know,
most
but-
of it's crap.
So if something is half true, is it true?
No.
No. An element of falsehood negates it. Okay? This is Rita Skeeter we're talking about. So Harry takes that. Did Doge really think it was that easy to simply choose not to believe? What's he choosing not to believe? Rita Skeeter. Doge is saying, Harry, believe. But believe what? Your memories of Albus Dumbledore. Harry's memories of Albus Dumbledore are based upon experience. His personal experience. His personal relationship. Harry needs what he thinks. He needs to be sure. He needs to know everything. Remember in the previous book when he's talking with Lupin and he's talking with Arthur and he says, how do we know Dumbledore's right? How do we know Snape really is on our side? Well, we don't know, but Dumbledore trusts him, and that's good enough for us. And then Snape goes and kills Dumbledore. And what do they all think afterwards? We completely didn't talk about that. But they have this little thing afterwards, and it's all, well, you know, we thought Dumbledore knew what he was doing. We thought. Implies, well, not anymore, as well as, and he was wrong. And just as his one idea about the Sorcerer's Stone in the mirror was truly brilliant, this one idea about Snape was truly bad. And if he could be that wrong about something like Snape, what has started happening in Harry's mind regarding Dumbledore? Doubts. Doubts. Okay? So they keep talking. Auntie Muriel comes in. Auntie Muriel takes a big, large drink of booze. It's just water. Yeah, exactly. She reminds you of Aunt Marge. And Doge says, Rita Skeeter is a dreadful... Okay, and Auntie Muriel goes on. Doge, after... I got to do this part. Auntie Muriel speaks for a little bit, talks about Dumbledore's squib sister. Okay? A chill that had nothing to do with the iced champagne was stealing through Harry's chest. What's that chill? That's doubt. His chest is where what? It's the seat of love. It's the seat of that word we've talked about before, ardor, which means both love and heat. And notice, the more Muriel speaks, the colder Harry gets. Okay? So she and Doge argue back and forth. And we have this passage. Doge looked to be on the verge of tears. Auntie Muriel seemed to be enjoying herself hugely, snapped her fingers for more champagne. Numbly, Harry thought of how the Dursleys had once shut him up, locked him away, kept him out of sight, all for the crime of being a wizard. What's Harry doing? He's projecting himself into the Dumbledore family history, based upon what Muriel is saying. Had Dumbledore's sister suffered the same fate in reverse? Had Dumbledore truly left her to her fate? Notice, these are all open-ended questions. Open-ended questions don't have answers. Muriel swigs yet more champagne. The recitation of these old scandals seemed to elate her as much as they terrified or horrified Doge. Harry did not know what to think, what to believe. So now it's like there's a balance. You have Doge on one side, who is the altar boy of worship of Dumbledore, and you have Auntie Muriel on the other side, who is what kind of person? What does she apparently live for, other than champagne? Drama, slander, libel. She reads those tabloids and she believes them hook, line, and sinker. Okay? Harry did not know what to think, what to believe. He wanted the truth, like he did at the end of Book 1. And yet, all Doge did was sit there and bleat feebly that Ariana had been ill. Harry could hardly believe that Dumbledore would not have intervened as such cruelty was happening inside his own house. And yet there was undoubtedly something odd about the story. What is odd about the story? Harry needs Paul Harvey, if you remember who Paul Harvey, the radio announcer, was, because Paul Harvey would give part of a story and he'd come back from the break and he'd say, and now for the rest of the story. Harry's not getting the rest of the story. When does he? Godric's Hollow? Nope. Aberforth? Partially. King's Cross. In other words, what does he need to do before he can get the rest of the story? Die. So, the wedding gets invaded by the Ministry. The Ministry has fallen, we're told. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione go off to Tottenham Court Road. And then they go off to number 12, Grimmauld Place. And while there, Harry feels ill and sees into Voldemort's mind. And we get this nice little passage. Draco, give Raoul another taste of our displeasure. Do it, or feel my wrath yourself. Harry comes out of this dream, and he feels sickened by what he had seen, by the use to which Draco was now being put by Voldemort. The use to which Draco was now being put. Draco is simply what? Tool. He's like Voldemort's wand. Why? Why is Voldemort doing this? Is it to punish Draco? What else? Louder?
Make someone else like not like affection, but similar.
Okay. Why else? This is punishment. This is kind of ensuring that Draco is a true believer. That Draco really is a Death Eater. What kind of punishment is Draco giving him? Cruciatus, unforgivable. Okay. Go on a little bit more into Creature's Tale. Harry wakes up the next morning. He's looking up at the chandelier, and he's just lying there. And we're told the grief that had possessed him since Dumbledore's death felt different now. The accusations he'd heard from Muriel at the wedding seemed to have nested in his brain like diseased things. Notice, in his brain. Why? Why his brain? Why not in his heart? Okay. Think, structural. Where's his brain? It's at top. So if it nests in his brain like diseased things, what do the diseased things do? They rot. And so the rot is going to go down, and it's going to infect his heart. If it starts here and moves down, the brain remains kind of incorrupt. Infecting his memories of the wizard. First time we hear this, he had idolized. He had idolized Dumbledore. Danger? What happens anytime you put another person on a pedestal? They disappoint you. Husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, father, mother, teacher, president, whatever. You raise them up to the level of a god, and what do they then not do? Perform at that level. What do you come to learn? No, they're human just like I am. Okay? Dumbledore repeatedly makes clear to Harry what about himself? I'm not perfect. I'm fallible. I make mistakes. And he says when I make mistakes, they're what? The consequences of those mistakes are often greater than the consequences of everybody else's mistakes because their actions aren't as great as mine. Okay? Harry thinks of Godric's Hollow. He thinks of the Greys that Dumbledore had never mentioned there. Because Harry's surprised that the Dumbledores grew up in Godric's. He's thinking, why didn't he ever tell me? Why didn't he tell me? His family and my family might have been friends. Why didn't we ever go there? Why hadn't Dumbledore told him? Why hadn't he explained? Had Dumbledore actually cared about Harry at all? Harry extrapolates from these two questions to, he never really loved me anyways. Or had Harry been nothing more than a tool to be polished and honed, but not trusted, never confided in? Okay, he's getting a lot nearer the mark there. Is Harry merely a tool? Think about it, folks. What happens if Dumbledore's plan doesn't work? Voldemort, reigns. Voldemort gets power. And everything else kind of falls. I mean, this is the import of when Snape says to Dumbledore, in that memory. That's it. That's it. You've raised him, fed him, protected him, so that he can be slaughtered like a pig. Is this... Anybody remember what Dumbledore says to Snape at that point?
Have you grown to care for it?
Is this care? Is this concern? Boom! And the dough comes out. Okay? Think of Dumbledore's plan for a moment. When does that plan begin?
The night one. Yeah, the night that we're gone.
The night the prophecy is told. Okay. Think of that chapter Spinner's End again. The spinner is Dumbledore. The end is his end that is being discussed. It's the end of the whole web. Is the web all entirely, is Dumbledore's plan entirely, how do I describe this? Altruistic? Is it entirely for the good of others? Well, I mean, you could say ultimately, yeah, it is. It's not for Dumbledore's glory. It's to stop Voldemort. Okay, but what's the little problem? What has to happen? You're all mumbling. You don't want to just blurt it out. Harry is the sacrifice. Harry has to die, and he has to do it how? Himself. And he can only do it when? After all the Horcruxes are gone. In other words, everything's got to fall in exactly the right way. With the possible exception of Nagini. That's why he tells, Neville, you meet a big giant snake, off it. Okay? You're going to say something?
I was just going to say it doesn't work out that way. Does it?
Well, yeah, it doesn't quite, except for that. Okay? So he's just lying there in the darkness, thinking of all this, as resentment swells up inside. And we're told, Harry could not stand lying there with nothing but bitter thoughts for company, so he gets up and he goes out. And they start walking around. They go into Sirius's room. And, Sirius has, bikini-clad women all over his walls and all this kind of stuff. What else do they find? Harry finds the letter. His mother's handwriting. He makes his G's the same way his mom does. The picture. Little Harry flying on the little toy broom. Okay? The letter. Harry thinks the letter is significant for what reason? Information on Dumbledore. For the information it tells him about Dumbledore. Is that why the letter is important? It's not. Why is it then? Wow, the sarcasm dripping from that. I mean, kind of need a shovel to get it away from me. What do you mean it had Lily's love on it?
It says, love from Lily.
Okay. Okay. What else? Information about old Batty Bagshot. Okay. What else? What is Harry going to start looking for fairly soon? Dumbledore's already put him onto it a little bit. Oh, I forgot that passage too. Shoot. I'll have to come back to it. Horcruxes, right? What kind of things is Harry kind of told to look for Horcruxes? Stuff belonging to the founders. Why? Because they're kind of relics of them. What is now Harry holding in his hand? A relic of his mother. This is something she held. She touched. When you guys went to various places, did maybe you're not weird like I am. Do you not try to touch stuff that you're not supposed to touch?
Okay. Like real bad.
When I first came to London in 1995 and went to the British Museum, my jaw dropped. because the Rosetta Stone was just sitting out in the open. It did not have a big black box over it. And it didn't have ropes or cases or you could, and I mean, I was like a blind person. I just, that's why, I've thought before about going to Stonehenge with a white cane. Because I had a student go on another class and they took her up to the stone. And she got to go. And, it doesn't matter if I don't see him because I've seen him from a distance. But yeah, I'd like to go up and touch those stones. Why? Because somebody 5,000 years ago put them there for a reason. We don't know what the reason is. You can read all the books in the world on Stonehenge. They don't have a clue what they're talking about. Anthropology is 90% guesswork, and 10% archaeology, and 0% probably true. Okay, when you're talking about stuff 7,000 years ago. So, this is something held by his mother. Does he have anything else held by his mother? No. Father? No. He hears their the invisibility cloak. Okay? He hears their voices if he gets too close to Dementors. Can he replay those at will? No. So this is now something, okay, that's going to become very important for him, like the stupid little gum wrappers that Neville keeps from his mother. Okay? Then what do they discover? Oh, I should go back to that other scene, shouldn't I? Shoot. Only problem is I'm not exactly sure which of these pages is that I've noted it in, and it is. I think it's this one real fast. It's when they're at... Yeah, it's that page. No, I skipped it. It's when they're talking about Horcruxes in the Ghoul in Pajamas chapter. Hermione tells how she took all of Dumbledore's books out of his office, essentially. And she says, sorry to jump back like this, the more I've read about them, the more terrible they seem, the less I can believe he actually made 6. It warns in this book how unstable you make the rest of your soul by ripping it. Oh, by the way, several of you said the other day, Dumbledore lied through his teeth in telling Harry that Voldemort made 6. Did he? Yeah.
Said it was King's Cross, said it was a guess. Good guess.
Good guess, but he guessed. This is why it's important when Harry interprets Dumbledore's statement, he transferred some of his powers into you, he put a bit of himself in me? Yeah, that's a lot more accurate than the other one. So, Ron, isn't there any way of putting yourself back together? Yes, but it would be excruciatingly painful. How? Harry asks. How do you do it? Why does Harry ask that? He doesn't want to have to kill him. Remorse, says Hermione. You've got to really feel what you've done. Oh, and there's a footnote. Apparently, the pain of it can destroy you. I can't see Voldemort attempting it somehow, can you? No, said Ron before Harry could answer. Notice, Ron blurts out there. So does it say how to destroy Horcruxes? Harry wants to know how you fix yourself. Remorse. Why is remorse excruciatingly painful? You take responsibility? What else? Rain said it early on in class in relation to something else that I was talking about up here. The idea of poverty and death. Yeah. Remorse is really self-denial. Because what are you saying? I was wrong. That's denying yourself. Okay? So when Harry offers it to Voldemort at the end, what's he saying? Don't always think of yourself. Show some remorse. Okay, now go back up to where we were. I have no idea where that was. We're only there? Okay. We're going to have to skip some more then. So we're at the letter. Bathilda drops in. James is getting frustrated because he's shut up here. Dumbledore has James's invisibility cloak. Harry puts 2 and 2 together. Your father left this in my care when he died. Okay. Each little curl on her G's feels like a what? Harry reads through the letter. She'd made her G's the same way he did. He searched through the letter for every one of them, and each felt like a friendly little wave glimpsed from behind a veil. It's not accidental. Okay? Not at all. But Harry thinks the only useful stuff is what he reads about Dumbledore. Harry and Hermione start to talk. Hermione says, I know, you want to go to Godric's Hollow now. You want to go to the to where everything happened. And she says, Harry, I know you're upset about what Muriel said. Harry, I want to know the truth. I'm not upset. I'd just like to know whether it's true or not. You really think you'll get the truth from a malicious old woman like Muriel or from Rita Skeeter? How can you believe them? Notice what she juxtaposes. How can you believe them? You knew Dumbledore. Knew is how is that different from belief? What's the proof? Okay. He's around Dumbledore. He saw. Okay. Let's use for a moment the language and imagery of the church again. The disciples knew Christ personally, intimately. They walked with him, they talked with him, they ate with him, they slept with the whole 9 yards. The people who came after the disciples, what? They didn't. They believed. Those 5,000 who were converted on the day of Pentecost, they didn't see Jesus. They didn't know Jesus. They believed. Why? Because of what the apostles told them. Okay? The apostles knew. The others believed. Go back even farther for a moment. After the resurrection, the apostles are all together. Thomas comes in. They say, Thomas, we've seen the Lord. He's risen. What's Thomas say? Yeah, right. Don't believe it. He says, unless I see him with my eyes, put my finger through his hands, feel the hole in his side, I will not. He doesn't say cannot. He says, I will not believe. A week later, they're in the upper room, doors closed again. Thomas feels a tap on his shoulder. He turns around and Jesus is going, come on. It tickles. Thomas says, my Lord and my God. What does Jesus say? Anybody know? Blessed are you who have seen and believe, and more blessed are those who don't see and believe. Now read Flannery Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find. One of the greatest short stories written in the English language. Okay? So, Harry says, I thought I did. I thought I knew Dumbledore. But you know how much truth there was in everything Rita wrote about you. Doja's right. How can you let these people tarnish your memories of Dumbledore? What is she suggesting his memories should be? Pure, shiny, like silver. Imagine the poor slob who had to shine, polish the silver at Anik if you went through the staterooms. It'd take days. Okay? Harry looks away. Okay? He can't look at Hermione in the face, trying not to betray the resentment he felt. There it was again. We're going to hear this phrase multiple times through the novel. Choose what to believe. He wants the truth. What does Harry mean by he wants the truth? He wants Thomas's. This. What's this? Is it the truth? Or this? It's proof. He wants proof. Okay? Proof. Instead, what do people keep telling him? You have to choose what to believe. In other words, you're not going to get the proof. Does Harry get the proof? He sees Snape's memories. Is that proof? Is that Harry experiencing that? No, it's not. Because what are each one of our memories created by? Our perspectives. Is Snape's perspective correct on everything? Is my perspective always right? Hell no. 1% maybe. Okay? But if you have a whole bunch of people who all have the same experience of something, what can you generally then say? You know, they're probably on the right track. Mass hallucination? 5,000 people all saw the same UFO? I don't think so. It would kind of generally mean maybe they actually did see something. Okay? He wants the truth. So, Harry wants to find the rest of the letter. Oxio letter. Well, that didn't work, Ron says. What's Harry's resolution to that? How are they going to find the rest of the letter? Manually. Why? Okay. Keep going. Why else? Because magic isn't going to solve your problems. I think Rowling, within the course of the 7 novels, she puts in these little things. I think they're her way of reminding her children, readers growing up, make believe. You're not going to get a letter on your 11th birthday. Why? Magic won't solve your problems. Okay? So they get down on their hands and knees and look. Then we get Creature's Tale. And what do we discover about Creature? Why did Creature give up Sirius to the Blacks? To the Malfoys? So Sirius was an SOB. Sirius was rotten to Creature. Hermione has to tell Harry that and remind him, because Dumbledore already did and Harry didn't really listen. Of course, he wasn't in the state of mind at that point to really listen. Okay? What else do we learn? We learn about house elf magic. They must obey their masters. That was the point of will or won't in book 6. Okay? So what do we hear from from Creature in Creature's Tale? How obedient was he to Regulus? What did Regulus do? He said he gave Creature a command. What did Voldemort do? Voldemort gave Creature a command. Why didn't he obey? Because Voldemort's not his master. So, Creature obeys Regulus. And notice, I think it's more implied than stated directly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why does Regulus die? Okay, you're talking about how he dies. Why did he die? Okay. Keep going. What did he do to Voldemort? What did he become to Voldemort? He betrayed him. He was a follower before, when he was a Death Eater. What's he doing by drinking the potion? I'm no longer a Death Eater. Okay? You know, being a Death Eater is like being a member of the KGB. You don't just retire quietly and go off into the sunset. Okay? The only way you stop is you stop. So, how does Harry get Creature's allegiance? He gives him the false locket. Why? There's that idea of relic again. It was something that belonged to Creature's master. And Creature takes it, and it's almost, he treats this thing reverently. Okay? What about Bellatrix's portrait then? You think Creature regards Bellatrix's portrait the same way he does? Go on to Lupin arrives with the bribe. And what does Lupin want? Well, let me back up for a bit. What does Lupin inform them of? Okay, Tonks' pregnancy. What else? He brings a copy of the paper. What do they discover? Harry is public enemy number one. What is he wanted for? Questioning in the death of Albus Dumbledore, as if the Ministry of Magic gets a rat, you know what, for Albus Dumbledore. Okay? So, he tells them, after they start to talk about Pious Thickness and Voldemort and all this kind of stuff, he tells them that people, generally in the wizarding community, they whisper. They daren't confide in each other, not knowing whom to trust. They're scared to speak out in case their suspicions are true and their families are targeted. In other words, it's like they're living in a 1984 society. They don't know who's watching, who's listening. Okay? So Harry's like, so this change in ministry policy, the wizarding world's being warned against me instead of Voldemort? Lupin says part of it. Master stroke, you know. Everybody thought you were Dumbledore's man, and then now all this happens. And they start to talk about the Muggle-born register. Ron, people won't let that happen. People aren't going to let the Ministry of Magic start making a registration of Muggle-borns. Why does Ron think that? Because he's naive. Okay. Lupin. It is happening, Ron. Ron, I think, is a perfect example of that quote that I put up on the board. All that is necessary for evil to thrive is for good men to do nothing. Is Ron a good person? Yes, he is. But he thinks other people will solve the problems. Other people will take care of the issues. Ron's not going to be the one to necessarily jump into the middle of things. Not all the time. He does at times. The chess match. Okay? It is happening, Lupin says. Okay? They keep talking. Lupin mentions blood status. And so that's when he says, Dumbledore give you a plan, give you a job to do, Harry? And he talks about Tonks being pregnant, all this kind of stuff. And he says, so you accept my offer? Can 3 become 4? Well, 3 musketeers, 4 musketeers. I cannot believe Dumbledore would have disapproved. He appointed me your defense against the dark arts teacher after all. Well, he didn't appoint Lupin Harry's defense against the dark arts teacher. It was the whole school's. Ron and Hermione both look at Harry. Why? This is your call, Harry. Wait, Harry's like, okay, slow down here, because this is me and I'm slow. Let me make sure I get this right. You want to leave Tonks at her parents' house and come away with us. She'll be safe there. They'll look after her. Harry, I'm sure James would have wanted me to stick with you. I'm not. No, I'm pretty sure my father would have wanted to know why you aren't sticking with your own kid, actually. Notice, has little Teddy even been born yet? No. Lupin's face drained of color. Why? Shame? Anger? If it's shame, then what's going to be the color? It's probably going to be red.
But I think he knows where he's right.
Yeah, I think he does too. Ron stares around the room. Why? As though he had been bidden. Okay. As though he'd been bidden to memorize it, while Hermione's eyes swiveled backward and forward. Ron doesn't want to be involved. Ron wants to shrink away into nothing. Because I think Ron sees what's coming. Hermione's really interested. It's like a tennis match. You don't understand. Ah, there we are. What's he mean you don't understand? Finish the sentence. You're too young. Explain. I made a grave mistake in marrying Tonks. What's involved in that little marriage ceremony? Bonded for life. You should have thought about that before. Harry seems to be thinking. Okay, I get it. I did it against my better judgment. I've regretted it very much ever since. Notice, I did it against my better judgment. My judgment, my mind said, no, don't marry Tonks. Harry, I see. So you're just going to dump her and the kid and run off with us? You know, temperature in the room drops a good 15, 20 degrees. Lupin springs to his feet. His chair topples backwards. He glares at them fiercely. Harry sees for the first time ever the shadow of the wolf. That's pretty, yeah, pissed, but also scary when you think about it. Like, okay, don't push Lupin too much farther. Or maybe he's like the Hulk and he's always angry. He'll just, Don't you understand what I've done to my wife and my unborn child? I should never have married her. I've made her an outcast. You've only ever seen me amongst the order. You don't know how most of the wizarding world sees creatures like me. What does he mean by creatures like me? I mean, literally, he means werewolves. What else does he mean? Well, is he not fully human? He is fully human. He's just also, he's got a sickness. He's got an illness. He's contaminated. What is this like? Think of a real world example. AIDS. He has AIDS, essentially. Okay? When they know of my affliction, they can barely talk to me. Don't you see what I've done? Even her own family is disgusted by our marriage. Really? Did we ever hear Ted Tonks say anything negative?
No. And why would you ever listen to Bell Cribs?
My kind don't usually not have children, breed. It will be like me. Not him or her, or he or she. It will be like me. I'm convinced of it. How can I forgive myself when I knowingly risked passing on my own condition to an innocent child? Are we even told, can you pass on werewolfism? No. It comes from what? To bite, from the saliva. And if by some miracle it's not like me, then it will be better off 100 times so, without a father of whom it must always be ashamed. What has Lupin just said there? The child would be better off not having a father. Hermione, Remus, don't say that. How could any child be ashamed of you? Harry, I'd be pretty ashamed of him. I wish he'd thrown in there, I'd be pretty damned ashamed of him. That would be an excellent use of the word damned. Okay? Harry did not know where his rage was coming from, but it had propelled him to his feet too. So we now have broken foot. Harry and Lupin standing off to each other. Ron and Hermione still sitting. And they're probably holding their wands. Okay? Ron's still, gee, this is wonderful paint. Maybe I'll do my house like this.
Look at the ceiling.
If the new regime thinks Muggleborns are bad, what will they do to a half-werewolf whose father's in the Order? My father died trying to protect my mother and me. And you'd reckon he'd tell you to abandon your kid to go on an adventure with us? Notice, to go on an adventure. To go on vacation? Or on holiday, as they say over here? How dare you? This is not a desire for danger or personal glory. How dare you? I think you're feeling a bit of daredevil. You want to step into Sirius's shoes. Well, Sirius is dead, so Sirius is dead. James is dead. Pettigrew's a traitor. Come on, Harry, no! Don't say that. The wolf will come out. And Harry's just getting warmed up. I'd never have believed this. The man who taught me to fight Dementors, a coward. Harry feels himself flying back and Lupin disappears. How could you? Hermione asks. It was easy. He is so full of anger he's shaking. Hermione, don't look at me like that. Harry, he snaps at Hermione. Ron, don't you start on her. No, we mustn't fight, etc. Why did Harry say what he said? He had it coming to him. Broken images were racing each other through his mind. Sirius falling through the veil, Dumbledore suspended, broken in midair, a flash of green light and his mother's voice begging for mercy. Parents shouldn't leave their kids unless they've got to. Now, one of my students this past spring said, you think Rowling there is talking about her first husband? I was like, whoa, never thought of that. Not by the time this book is written, though, because she's happily married to Neil, what's his name, the orthodontist or something, okay? Has other kids, etc., with him. But what's Harry saying? No matter what, parents should stay together. No matter what. Families should be intact. We don't have enough room on the whiteboard probably to talk about the unintact families. Or even the intact families that are dysfunctional. The Malfoys have an intact family. Is it functioning properly? No, it's not. Okay? Go on from here. We're going to skip Magic is Might other than... Did anything about the prop, the throne at the Harry Potter studio, stick out at you? Louder?
It's not even supposed to be right.
Yeah, it's entirely wrong. The whole damn thing is wrong. Okay? First of all, it's not just a monument. What is it? They are thrones. There are two of them, with a witch and wizard sitting on them. What are they sitting on? What are the thrones? Those are the Muggles. It's not thrones made of wood and underneath the thrones are the Muggles. The thrones themselves are the Muggles. So if they have their arms resting like this would be like the back of a Muggle and maybe a head right there to rest the hands on. Okay? And Magic is Might goes in foot-high letters on the pedestal beneath the throne. Okay? So why change that? I mean, honest question. Why in the world would you change that? Which of those images is more disturbing? It's the one in the book, folks. So is that why they changed it? It's naked muggles and they're writhing. These are like moving, real, living people who are forced, contorted into this form. And it's like they're trying to get out. and they can't. I mean, it's probably why. Too much. Okay? So, we get to the end of that chapter, and Ron splits. Why? Why does Ron leave? Because he thought Harry had a plan. He thought Harry knew what he was doing. Okay? Harry's like, hey man, I've been honest with you, told you everything I know. Ron leaves. He assumes Hermione's going to leave with him, and she doesn't. Next morning, Harry wakes up. He thinks his Weasley is gone. Harry tells Hermione, and she tells him about the same time, we need to go to Godric's Hollow. Okay? So they go off to Godric's Hollow. They apparate. When is it? Christmas Eve. They get there. They see the Christmas lights all over. And there was what looked like a war memorial in the middle of town, partly obscured by a wind-blown Christmas tree. How many of these war memorials have you seen? How many little small towns have you wandered in? Any? Because you should see them everywhere. Usually there's one, and then another one either gets added to it, or they add a section to that memorial. Okay? They see the shops, the post office, the pub, the little church. In other words, it is a quintessential small English village. The snow here had become impacted. It was hard and slippery where people had trodden on it all day. Okay? It's hard and impacted. What does that imply? Is there only an inch of snow? How much snow would there be on the ground if it hadn't been impacted? A lot. It's been snowing a while. Villagers crisscrossing the square in front of them. And Hermione says, Harry, I think it's Christmas Eve. Is it? You'd lost track of the days. I'm sure it is. They'll be in the church. As Hermione looks at the church, they'll be in there, won't they? Why would Harry's parents be in the church? I mean, Harry's parents, after all, are dead. Okay? I mean, it's not like Harry's parents are famous. I mean, who gets buried in a church? In the church. You go to Westminster Abbey. You go to Poets' Corner. Who's there? Chaucer, Beaumont, Fletcher, all these big names. Okay? Little podunk, no-name English major who writes poetry for a living, sells one, does not get buried in Poets' Corner. If you went into the cathedral yesterday at Christchurch, who did you step on? John Locke. You can't miss him. You have to jump to miss him, essentially. Okay? The real John Locke, not Locke lost John Locke. Okay? So, she says, I can see the graveyard. Harry feels this thrill of excitement, etc. And then she says, look, as they're making their way across the square. So, the square is like this. They're making their way across. They're not traveling down. They're not, being touristy and following the sidewalks. They're going. This monument is here. Okay? They get halfway across. So they're not fully one place or the other. They're kind of in the in-between place. They're kind of diagonal to reality. And what happens? Hermione points at the war memorial. As they had passed it, it had transformed. Instead of an obelisk covered in names, there was a statue of 3 people. A man with untidy hair and glasses, a woman with long hair and a kind, pretty face, and a baby boy sitting in his mother's arms. Snow lay upon all their heads like fluffy white caps. Why only on their heads? Why not on James's shoulders? Why not covering the baby? I mean, she's cradling the baby in her arms. His little face is up like this. And the snow's only on his head. This is symbolism. It is written solely for symbolism. In other words, Rowling is intentionally ignoring basic laws of physics just to get this image across. It's Christmas Eve. Mom, Dad, little baby boy. It's the Holy Family. Okay? Harry drew closer. He looks up into the faces. He says, come on. They go off into the churchyard. As they approach the church, notice the singing gets louder. Why? Because Harry and Hermione are getting closer, and the people inside the church realize the chosen one, the Savior, Patronus Potter, is coming, and so they raise their voices. No. Simple law of physics. Okay? It made Harry's throat constrict. What does the church singing, the singing of Christmas carols, remind him of? And what did they do at Hogwarts, apparently? There was singing of Christmas carols. We see the scene where Hagrid's trying to get the 12 big Christmas trees set up into place. Okay? They go off into the churchyard. And they start looking at tombstones. Harry, oh, here's an abbot. Could be a relation of Hannah's. Hermione, shh. Why? Why do you tell people to shh in a churchyard? Are the dead going to wake up? Are they going to go, shh, I'm trying to sleep here? Is it because they don't? They're dead. How is that respectful? I'm being totally honest. How is this respectful?
I mean, you don't scream in a church either. It's respectful.
Okay.
It's a holy place.
Bingo.
Holy place.
Bingo. That's what I was getting for. It is hallowed ground. Okay? That's why if you've ever read the play Hamlet, the gravediggers have a big argument whether or not Ophelia should be buried in the churchyard because they think she committed suicide. Suicides cannot be buried in hallowed ground because according to the dictates of the church, they go straight to hell. No purgatory, no heaven, period. Why? Because they doubt God. God is not big enough to remove whatever problems they have. Period. Okay? Catholic Church used to say that. I don't think it does anymore. Yeah. Today it's more viewed as anybody who commits suicide is mentally unstable and unwell, and they cannot be blamed for that action. So, they keep going on, and Hermione says, here, Harry. Then she points down to the dark stone. Harry stoops down and sees upon the frozen lichen-spotted granite, I don't know which one of these I have it pulled up on. That's Matthew. They see the words Kendra Dumbledore and her daughter Ariana. And there's a quotation. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Okay? Anybody know what that is? It's Matthew, I've got it written down. Matthew 6:21. Okay? So, Matthew 6, the whole chapter, is essentially about trusting God for everything that comes into your life. So the beginning of it is about giving alms to the poor. Okay? Why? What do alms for the poor become for the poor? Their daily bread. That becomes their source of sustenance. Then it's about how to pray. You get the Our Father, the Pater Noster. It's about how to fast. Okay? And it's about trusting God entirely. Matthew 6:19. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. I lost my place there. Treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Therefore, Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Summing up everything that has come before in that chapter. Okay? So Dumbledore has put on his mother's and sister's grave, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Okay? Harry thinks, interesting thought. He has no idea what it means. Hermione's still looking at Harry, and he's glad that she can't see his face. He reads the words on the tombstone again. He did not understand what those words meant. Surely Dumbledore had chosen them. Are you sure he never mentioned? Hermione says, no. Let's keep looking. Hermione points out a tombstone with the Deathly Hallows mark. Harry, I'm going to go look for my parents. I don't really care about your stupid, runes and stuff. Harry walks farther into the graves, into the cemetery. And what are we told? We're told the darkness and the silence seem to become all of a sudden much deeper. Why? Harry looked around worried, thinking of Dementors. The darkness gets deeper, and it seems to get colder, and Harry thinks there must be Dementors around. Then he realizes, no, the carols had finished. Now, notice that for a moment. The carols stop being sung, and it gets darker and colder. What's the effect? Or put it this way, what are the effects of the carols on Harry? They give him hope, and they give him warmth. And he realized the carols had finished. The chatter and flurry of churchgoers were fading as they make their way back out into the square. Somebody just turned off the lights in the church. He hears Hermione again. Never noticed that. For the third time. Harry, they're here. The headstone was only 2 rows behind Kendra and Ariana's. It was made of white marble, just like Dumbledore's tomb, and this made it easy to read. Plus, they haven't been dead very long. As it seemed to shine in the dark, Harry did not need to kneel or even approach very close to it to make out the words engraved upon it. James Potter, born 27 March 1960, died 31 October 1981. Lily Potter, born 30 January 1960, died 31 October 1981. Okay? Bellatrix, by the way, if you looked at the tapestry closely, my wife and I were there again Monday night, and I took pictures because I saw some of the dates. Bellatrix was, not Bellatrix. Yeah, somebody was married. Who was that?
Oh, Bellatrix and Rodolphus were married in 1955.
Yeah. Bellatrix is a lot older. Okay? She's like old enough to be James's mother. It's kind of weird. I really, something's strange about that. Anyways, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Harry read the words slowly as though he would have only one chance to take in their meaning, and he read the last of them aloud. Well, that's a horrible thought. Isn't that a Death Eater idea? Why is that there? It doesn't mean defeating death in the way the Death Eaters mean it, Harry. Hermione says it means, living beyond death, living after death. Harry obviously doesn't know, right? Totally foreign concept to Harry. Totally new. So why does he put a cross on the tree over Moody's eye? Harry seems to me to be, don't mistake the terms, thoroughly irreligious or thoroughly all-religious, not atheist. He doesn't even know enough to be an atheist. It's like nobody has ever said anything, word one, to him about death and after death. Okay? So that when he has that little talk with Luna, he's like, really? Okay, Luna, you're kind of out there. But then he goes and puts a cross over Mad Eye's I, just the I. Okay? He hears this, or he reads this, and he doesn't have a clue what it means. Well, what is this? This is from 1 Corinthians 15:26. Gotta pull it back up on my other thing. Where is it? 1 Corinthians 26, which is all about the resurrection. In the first part of it, Paul is saying, you know, we Christians, we're people to be pitied more than anybody else, because if we're wrong about this, man, we're screwed. And if we're wrong about this, boy, we wasted our lives, because we could be going out there having all kinds of fun, but we're not. Okay? But then he goes on and says, but now, 20, Christ is risen from the dead, has become the first fruits, blah, 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 blah. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ all shall be made alive. Notice Voldemort's trying to get around the all part. Voldemort's, for as in Adam all but me die, you know. Then comes the end, verse 24, when Christ delivers the kingdom to the Father, for he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet. That is, Christ must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be destroyed is death. There will be no death, in other words. Okay? And then he goes on and says, but what if there is no resurrection? Okay? And Paul begins that whole part by saying, I am an apostle too. Why? He says, I've seen Christ. In other words, I'm not just talking about what I believe, but what I've seen. Okay? Hermione says, living after death. Notice what Harry thinks. But they're not living, thought Harry. They're gone. The empty words, that is, the empty words inscribed on a piece of dead, cold stone, could not disguise the fact that his parents' moldering remains lay beneath snow and stone, indifferent, unknowing. What could Harry do if he wanted to at this point? He could try the little spell that Wormtail used to bring Voldemort back, and he could conjure up his father's ashes, or his father's dust. And tears came before he could stop them, boiling hot, then instantly freezing on his face. And what was the point in wiping them off or pretending? What's Harry doing at this point? Finally, this is grieving. This is the grieving he's never been allowed to do before. This is the grieving he's never had the opportunity to do before. This is why it's so important. You know, a plane goes down in the ocean. Not next Monday, hopefully. Plane goes down in the ocean. Sorry.
Oh man.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
I believe.
well, at least it'd be quick.
That's what you think.
Yeah. Is it slow? Plane goes down. The airline last year, MH370, okay, which they think they found part of, and they think it was intentionally ditched into the ocean. Ditched meaning it attempted a landing in the ocean. Okay, it wasn't going to last long. Okay. Where was I going with that? Yeah, sorry. Needing a body to be buried. This is why, you know, after an explosion, if you can find something at least, so that there is something to put in the ground, you know, so that people have a place to go to. And he just lets it go. There, where the last of Lily and James lay, bones now surely or dust, not knowing or caring that their living son stood so near, his heart still beating. Alive because of their sacrifice and close to wishing at this moment that he was sleeping under the snow with them. Mirror of Erised, anybody? Are they not aware? Mirror of Erised seems to me to show, or it shows to me, maybe I'm completely crazy. Shows to me they're aware. The Portkey, Book 4, shows to me they're aware. Harry, take the cup, get back to Hogwarts, we'll give you time. Harry, take my body. Hermione grips his hand. Notice Hermione wisely does what else? Nothing. She keeps silent. What would be the worst thing for Hermione to do? Oh, it's okay, Harry. No, it's not okay. His parents are dead. Where are hers? Yeah, we haven't even gone there. What did she do to her parents? Who the hell gave her the right to do that? Think about that. She took away, probably, being a parent, one of, if not maybe the most important memories they had, their own child. And she just kind of gleefully, willy-nilly, whoosh, takes it away. Is she going to whoosh, put them all back at some point in the future, assuming everything's all fine? Ryan's the one who's got me to start thinking about that kind of stuff, because he brought it up one time. The nonchalance with which certain spells are done in the wizarding world is really scary when you think about the things that could be done. Then she creates the nice little wreath, okay? So, we got to go on a bit. We get the life and lies of Albus Dumbledore. We're going to skip all the part where Harry goes off to Bathilda Bagshots. Because all that's... What's the one important thing that happens there? There's only one important thing. His wand is destroyed. Okay? What happens when he left Privet Drive? Hedwig. Or if you want, think of Fiona from Shrek singing. And the little bird. Poof, you know. Hedwig. Poof. Just
better.
Sorry. Hedwig becomes a bunch of feathers. So, Harry loses his wand. What does he have now? Memories of his parents? Gone. He's been to the grave. His wand is gone. His bird is gone. He's got nothing, right? I mean, totally nothing. He wakes up that next morning, which is what morning? It's now Christmas morning. The sun was coming up. I'm going to read a long description, long passage. The sun was coming up. The pure, colorless vastness of the sky stretched over him, indifferent to him and his suffering. Okay, I know it's described as the pure, colorless vastness of the sky. What is really indifferent to Harry and his suffering? What's being described? What is meant by the sky? Keep going. Beyond. The whole freaking universe. Okay? Harry is what to the universe? Zip. He's nothing. Nothing. Okay? You got to really understand this part. This is the nihilism of Friedrich Nietzsche. If you're a nihilist, okay, I'm not advocating that you do this. Please don't misunderstand me. YouTube watchers, don't misunderstand me. Okay? If you're a nihilist, you really only have one option in life. End it. Just kill yourself. What's the point? Think about it for a moment. What's the point in going on? How many of you every day is better than the day before? Every day you just wake up with that happy smiley face and you just want to go on. You can't wait to attack the day because you're going to win the day. The day's going to be all yours. Yeah, I didn't think so.
I always hope those people have like surreal crisis, just to like shake them a little bit. Not
Okay.
like real bad.
That's nihilism in a nutshell. This idea, life is utterly, completely, totally meaningless. There is nothing you can do that makes yourself important or significant. Okay? Read Matthew Arnold's wonderful, uplifting little poem, Dover Beach, where he talks about, the persona of the poem talks about being in a hotel room with a girl. And she's apparently lying there on the bed. He's looking out at the window. He hears the ocean coming in and out. And he starts thinking, going all Sophocles on her, thinking that the universe is meaningless and nothing. How does Sophocles, by the way, end Oedipus the King? Count no man happy until he's dead. Yeah, that's a great line to use in a bar to try and, seduce a woman. Hey, baby. Which is why a 20th century poet, Anthony Hecht, wrote a parody of Dover Beach called Dover Bitch, where the girl is essentially saying, oh, shut up and come to bed. Let's just, have sex. The guy's going to buy me stuff. And it's about, the guy meeting up with the girl about every 5-6 years, even though he's already married. And he, they show each other a good time. He gives her some nice French perfume. And what are they doing? They're killing the meaninglessness of life. Somehow, through sex. Okay? World. You. Nothing. To what? To Harry and his suffering. This is what governs Harry at this moment in time. His suffering. Every other time in the books when we've really seen Harry's suffering come to the fore, what happens? Luna, her stuff is missing. Hagrid, Buckbeak's going to get killed. Harry meets somebody else also suffering. And it turns his attention from himself to them. Here, does he meet anybody else who's suffering? Is anybody else's suffering at this point greater than his? No. He sits down in the tent entrance, takes a deep breath of clean air. Notice what our narrator says. Our narrator throws in this editorial comment. Simply to be alive, to watch the sun rise over the sparkling snowy hillside, ought to have been the greatest treasure on earth. Yet he could not appreciate it. In other words, walking into a Thomas Kinkade painting on Christmas morning should have made Harry feel all warm and fuzzy and glowy, like he just had hot chocolate spiked with the best alcohol you can imagine. And he ought to just be going, oh, look at this beautiful scenery. But what? He could not appreciate it. Why? His senses had been spiked by the calamity of losing his wand. He looked out over a valley blanketed in snow. Who wouldn't want to see that on Christmas morning? I mean, this is like being in New England. Beautiful hills, trees, white churches with their steeples and everything. He hears the church bells doing what? Chiming people to come to church on Christmas morning. And what's he doing? He's got his hands somehow like this, and he's digging his nails into himself. He had spilled his own blood more times than he could count. He had lost all the bones in his right arm. This journey had given him scars to his chest and forearm. Where did he get the scar in his chest? Voldemort? The Horcrux?
Yeah, Hermione had to sever it from because it was like
Yeah, it was sticking to him, but I don't think it's burned into him.
Yeah.
It did? Okay.
Okay.
I was thinking Scrimger. Scrimger touches him with his wand and burns him like a cigarette burn. Okay. What else? Forearm to join those on his hand and forehead, but never until this moment had he felt himself to be fatally weakened. By the way, the wounds he has there, he has one that he shouldn't have, and he's missing one he should have, if we were going to make Harry to be really Christ-like. He's got nothing on his ankles, but he's got the one on his arm. Okay? Maybe that's, wrists. I don't know. To be fatally weakened, vulnerable, and naked, as though the best part of his magical power had been torn from him. Why? Where does he think his magical power comes from? The point of a wand. What has Dumbledore already told him? And he still hasn't listened. It's not the wand. He knew exactly what Hermione would say. The wand is only as good as the wizard. But she was wrong. And his case was different. Why? Because he's thinking, brother wands. I can't defeat Voldemort if I don't have I got to have my lucky charm wand, as it were. He pulls the broken pieces out. He's like, maybe Hermione can fix it for me. Okay. Yeah, it worked really well with the Rons, didn't it? Okay. And what happens? His fury at Dumbledore breaks over him like lava. They'd gone to Godric's Hollow. Why? Out of desperation. And he feels that it was all part of some secret path Dumbledore laid out for them. But there was no map, no plan. Dumbledore had left them to grope in the darkness, to wrestle with unknown and undreamed of terrors, alone and unaided. Nothing was explained. Nothing was given freely. They had no sword, and now Harry had no wand. In other words, Harry feels what? Helpless. How many of us are given, when we're born, wish I actually had a physical one of these, a book that says, here's the guide to your life. A lot of people say it's the Bible. No, it's not. That's bullshit. Okay? That's not what the Bible is. The Bible isn't a manual as to how to live a successful life. The Bible isn't going to tell you how to invest in your stocks, notwithstanding the nonsense on the internet. Okay? The secret code, etc. Neither will any other book. Why? What does your life have that no book has? Your experience? I heard something over here. Soul. What else? Thank you. Different circumstances. My life's different from Ryan's, which is different from Rain's, which is different from my wife's, which is different from all of yours. Why? Because none of us have our path, what? Set. Or as Tolkien puts it, laid out for us. That's why I'm going to go way out on the limb here. Anybody who tells you they know what you ought to do in life, they know what you ought to do in life, is wrong. Only you can determine that. Only you can find that out. Can they maybe act as guideposts? Yeah, that can be helpful. You can use somebody else as a sounding board to find out maybe what your strengths and weaknesses are, help you determine a major, or course, career change, or whether or not you should marry this person or that person or not. Okay? But they can't say, this is what you should do. They can say that about themselves, but even, 54 years old, I can't say that necessarily what I might be thinking of doing 5 days from now is the right course of action. Okay? That's what Harry's confronted with. What does he want again from Dumbledore? He wants the proof, but what else? Yeah, he wants it all written down. Go 20 steps, take a left. Go 5 steps, take a right. Go 2 steps, take a right. Go 3 steps, take a left. He wants every decision what? made for him. Why? Because making decisions for ourselves is hard. Especially when you're left with a door without a window. And you don't know what that decision entails on the other side. You don't know what the consequences are. Voldemort made a decision not knowing the consequences. Why? He didn't know the second half of the prophecy. Every one of us is in Voldemort's position. We only know half of what we need to know. So what do? We believe. We don't have truth. We don't have proof. We don't have facts. We make a proverbial step of faith when we make those choices. Harry goes on, and he dropped the photograph of the thief. Okay? So, Harry reads all this stuff about Dumbledore. He reads the letter from Dumbledore to Gellert Grindelwald, and what does he learn? He might as well have been into the dark arts, because what's Dumbledore talking about? We do what? Take control. For, as everyone who will tell you, you should do this. It's what? For your own good. It's for your own good. What does the person who's saying it's for your own good assume about themselves? They know what's best. Yes, parents have to do that over their children until a certain age. And then what do they have to do? Hands off. You got to go, okay, little bird, fly! And that bird better start flapping those damn wings or they're going to our cat who's sitting down there going, you know. What's the cat represent? Life. You better fly or life's going to eat you up and spit you out. Okay? So, Harry reads it, and what does he think? Dumbledore was never who I thought he was. Is he wrong? Yes and no. The Dumbledore Harry knew is not what? Exactly. Because what was Dumbledore at the beginning? Describe, let me do this. Use another character's name to describe 17-year-old Albus Dumbledore. Come on, you know him.
Tom Riddle?
Close.
Oh,
Malfoy? Tom Riddle, okay. Percy, okay.
Tom Riddle's more evil, so I guess.
Does Percy want to control the world? No. Would Malfoy? If Malfoy had the option, do you think Malfoy would want to control the world? I do. I do. So what's the difference between Dumbledore and Malfoy? Never thought of this until literally those words just came out of my mouth. Not a lot.
Malfoy doesn't.
Okay.
Dumbledore said.
And that's why there is some. Does Malfoy change? Yes. But he changes why? Okay, kind of because he has to. He can't fulfill Voldemort's wishes. How does Dumbledore change? It's kind of because he has to, isn't it? Doesn't Dumbledore have to fight Grindelwald because of what Grindelwald did to his sister? I mean, he has to stop him. Right? He's kind of forced. What's the kind of Dumbledore we meet in the letter? Benevolent dictator? I mean, that's what he's describing. Benevolent dictatorship. We're going to do this. We're going to do it for the good of them. Yes, we're going to allow muggles some, rights and all this kind of stuff, but We will still rule. Describe the Dumbledore and King's Cross. What's the difference? I agree with almost everything you said except for 2 words. He doesn't want that much power, is what Katie said. He doesn't want power. Period. There is no good in evil. There is only power in those too weak to seek it. Is Dumbledore too weak to seek power? Was 17-year-old Dumbledore too? No, he was strong enough. So what about the 120-some-year-old Dumbledore? He was now wise enough not to seek it. How many times has he offered Minister of Magic? And he denies it. He turns it down. Why? Because like Gandalf in the ring, with that power, I would have power too strong. And it, with Gandalf, the ring, would gain more power over me. And it, Dumbledore, the Ministry of Magic, would gain more power. Okay? So how does Hermione get Harry to understand? He changed, Harry. He changed. Go back to book 2. Bad blood, Arthur. Rotten to the core. There's no sense doing anything for Malfoy. Okay? Book 4. Cornelius Fudge has the Dementor suck the soul out of Barty Crouch Jr. And what does Dumbledore say? He'll never change. You've put a stop to that. Okay? And he says, you put too much faith, he says, in what? Purity of blood. In what people are born, finish the sentence. Not what they become. Okay? What is Malfoy born? I mean, let's be honest. What is Draco Malfoy born? He's born a dark wizard. What is Snape? What is the other S? Sirius, essentially born. Dark wizard. He's born into that family. He's born into that heritage. He chooses differently. What is Regulus born? He chooses differently. Okay? They choose their destiny, per se. Entirely different. Snape? I guess we'll have to talk about this tonight. Snape? Yeah, he's born kind of dark. Does he choose differently? Yes. Is he still rotten? He's not nice. He's not kind. He's not gentle. He doesn't, epitomize 1 Corinthians 13, the passage on love. He's not gentle, kind, forgiving, humble, blah, 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 puffed up. He's the opposite of all those. But okay, maybe not rotten. But ultimately, he is on the side of good. So what does that mean? Just as the world is not divided between Death Eaters and everybody else, it's not divided between saints and everybody else. There's an early church writer who describes, people getting to heaven. And he describes heaven as an island. Looks like this, okay? And at the top of the island is essentially paradise, like the Garden of Eden rebuilt, okay? The really, 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 really good people, they end up here. They get paradise, per se. Hopefully, the people like me, they're going to be, here's the ocean. They're going to be right here, one hand clawing onto the shore, getting there. Because, everything else is going to drag me down like the inferior. Okay? Where's Snape? I think Snape's down here. Where's Harry? Harry's up here. Dumbledore's up here. Put whoever else you want up here. Where's Voldemort? Okay. Why? Because he doesn't change. He doesn't change. Okay, it's 12 o'clock. We can go on for another half an hour if you want. I know you're hungry, you need to use restrooms, all that kind of stuff. But I need to tell you, the meeting's been changed. I have no idea where this is, somewhere around here. It's in room 281 for orientation. In fact, you come out here, you go down that hallway, because when I've gotten mixed up in here, yeah, it's down that way. 445, I believe. Okay, so room 281 for the mandatory pre-departure orientation. You probably don't need to go because you're not leaving with us. If you're not leaving on Monday, aren't you leaving early? You better make sure, because I was told earlier you were leaving on Saturday. Yeah, you, Rain. Somebody told me you were leaving Saturday or Sunday. Somebody, CCSA told me that. So you might want to just double check with them.
Shipping it out, everybody.